All right, all right. We're up and going. We're up and going.
All right.
Hello, everybody. Today I'll be doing an informational interview with Eric Tavora. Eric Tavora is an independent artist, music artist, and currently he's going to be sharing with us his experience within the industry and giving us more insight on his journey. So, Eric Tavora, would you like to share with us a brief background of like who you are, where you're from, and yeah, what you do?
All right. First of all, thank you for having me here. My name is Eric. I go by Alvane. That's my music artist name. I've been independent artist for about 2 to 3 years, I'd say. Like he already mentioned, I also do music, but I also do producing. So I'm an artist producer. I've been independent in that field for about 2 years. The genre of music I make is really around the R&B, towards more the rap area, but I'm really flexible towards other genres as well. And yeah, I'm just really glad to be here and answer whatever questions you got.
Wow, wow, that's very, very cool. I didn't know you had such an extensive like background as well, like including like producing and you're into.
Yeah, that's how I started actually as a producer, and then I slowly got into making my own and singing and all that stuff. But yeah, it's a cool story, so we can definitely cover that.
Yeah, yeah, okay, okay. No, definitely will. Okay, well,
Mhm.
yeah, well, as you just touched on that, how did you get into music and what inspired you?
Yeah, all right. So, well, something else that I didn't mention, I am originally from Brazil. I'm Brazilian. So I've been in the U.S. for about it's like 5 years. So that's kind of where it starts. My dad was a musician, is still an artist. So I grew up kind of watching all that process firsthand.
Mhm.
He's a lead guitarist for a rock band in Brazil back then, and they used to tour and have paparazzis and all that, like really like big rock band. So
Yeah.
I would grow up going to studio sessions, going to shows, and seeing how he used to deal with things and all that, dealing with labels, dealing with being independent. He had a similar story to what I'm kind of going for now. He was signed by Sony for about 2 years, and then afterwards he decided to go independent once his deal ended with them. And then the
Mhm.
band continued for independent for a few more years. And then once my sister was born, my sister is 11. Then he decided to stop and then leave the band, just become like his own big thing. So yeah, so he's always been an artist. He still is an artist, and seeing that process, obviously as a kid, inspired me to kind of do my own thing. As I just mentioned here, he's a guitarist. He never sings, so he's just always been into more music production and playing guitar for the band. So that's how
Mhm.
I started. Like I think I first touched an instrument I was like 11 to 10. And funny story is I'm left-handed and he's right-handed. So I see you have a guitar right there, so you kind of know what I mean. The
Oh
strings are supposed
yeah,
to be,
okay, okay.
yeah. So you're supposed to, if you're right-handed, the top E string got to be on the top and the low one got to be at the bottom. So I
Right.
play backwards because I never like asked for a class or for anything. So when he just gets home and I'm left-handed, I'm playing his stuff backwards. He's like, "Oh, I'll just let it be." So as of now, bass guitar and guitar I play like upside down. So that's like I got yeah.
Oh, that's a cool little talent then. That's a
That's
cool.
the cool. Yeah, Jimi Hendrix used to
Yeah.
do that. So I was like, like I'll just let it slide, add some spice to it.
Yeah,
But
that's fine.
yeah.
Bro, you can never play online anymore, bro. We're gonna be like, this man don't know how to play for real.
No,
That's
and I got a
funny.
story with that with a manager. I'm gonna tell you that later on in the interview. But it came in clutch though. Like it really, those talents came in clutch.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's how I started off, playing guitar, and then I don't know if you watched the movie Whiplash. It's a drumming movie that came out in 2014 for the Oscars. Love that movie, and I was like, I really like how intense it is and how he like pursued the drum set and all that stuff. So then I did started with drum set. My uncle was in the band with my dad. It was like a family band, and then he was a drummer for that stuff. So he was like, I'll just let you have like my bass drum and my snare, figure it out, learn how to build it yourself. We're not gonna teach you. Like I want you to like try it. So me also never having a teacher kind of made me appreciate instruments more. So like everything I have now, I really take care of it. I really understand how it works. So that's kind of how I've been for like every instrument. As of now, I play what is it like bass guitar, acoustic guitar, electric guitar, drum set, piano. I got into piano back in high school. I sing ukulele. Been starting with woodwinds recently. So I really like experimenting with it as much as I can. I have like two studios. I'll show you mine right here is right next to
Yeah,
me.
yeah, yeah.
So right here, you can kind of see like I got a keyboard, and that's a
Yeah.
five-string bass guitar. I got two guitars right there. I have a ukulele down on the bottom right there. I don't know if you can see it.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
my main one is downstairs, which I have like three different drum sets. It's like a whole space with like a recording space that I do my music. But yeah, that's how I started. Just instruments. Never bothered about singing. Just wanted to create stuff for other people and all that in Brazil. And then I moved here and I went to high school band, so marching band. And then in there, I met some people that did music too and all that. And then I had this friend called Prince, and he had an older brother that did rapping. He used to rap like already like an independent artist on Spotify. Kenny is really important to the story. So then this one time, it's like 2020, I think, he hit me up in like January. It was like, yo, my brother needs somebody to play guitar for one of his songs because he couldn't
Yeah.
play guitar at the time. So I went there to play guitar. That's it, because that's what I did at the time. I just, did that. And then I got there, played the guitar for the part, he did his verse, and the song was like 1:30, and they needed like a second verse. And then Prince knew that I could sing on the low, but I never really liked showing off that I could sing because I was really insecure about it. So he was like,
Yeah.
just try it. And then if we mess with it, we'll put your verse there. If not, we'll find somebody else, and you already did your guitar part, and you can leave. I was like, okay. So I go up there, super nervous, didn't write anything, just improvised. And then I freestyle like on the first take, and they were like, okay, we really like this. The next morning, Kenny calls me and said, "This, I'm gonna give you the song because I feel like you can start something with this. Like, you should try being an artist instead of just a producer." So then he makes me my SoundCloud, he makes me my DistroKid, which is my current distributor. He kind of introduced me to that whole area. And back then I didn't have the producing equipment, like the Focusrite and the DAWs and the FLs and all that stuff. So
Yeah.
he was like, "Don't worry about none of that. We were neighbors." He was like, "You can just come over anytime you want. I'll teach you how to work that stuff." He gave me like 7 to 10 songs for free at first, mine own. And then, he kind of took me under his wing really because he was already a pretty established hip hop artist. And nowadays we're best friends. I did a concert with him downtown Thursday. I opened for him for this music festival. So we've been close ever
What?
since. And yeah, so nowadays I know everything, but I owe a lot to him. So every podcast I go, every interview I do, I make sure to try them out because that's your mighty on Spotify. Super,
Yeah,
super important part of my music journey.
that's
And so
crazy.
yeah, nowadays, I make my own stuff, produce for 3 other artists. I got on that production side of things, I have 2 albums on the way from other people that I'm doing. For my own, I released an EP in December called Parking Lot. And yeah, I'm just, been doing my own thing, independent.
Wow, 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 wow. Yeah. But when this ends, I'm gonna add your tag into the video. So
For sure.
I have to make sure. That's really cool. That's really cool. And are you also available like on all like platforms as well?
Yeah, every platform. On SoundCloud, after I got my distributor for Spotify, I stopped posting there. But people have been requesting me to go back to SoundCloud, so I might do that because my distributor doesn't cover SoundCloud because I don't get royalties from SoundCloud because SoundCloud is
Right.
more like an independent thing. So, but
Yeah.
everything else, YouTube Music, YouTube, Apple Music, Spotify, Deezer, all there. But I
Yeah.
will definitely be making an effort to go back to SoundCloud too for my SoundCloud listeners.
Yeah. Okay. 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 No, but I'm on everything. So I'll
Yeah,
definitely
yeah.
I'll listen for sure. So that's very cool. So you have robust experience with like in the music industry, not only with being an instrumentalist, a music artist, but also a producer as well. You are just killing the game, man. And how old are
Yeah,
you?
no, appreciate it. I just turned 20 back in January.
No, 20 years
Yeah.
old. This man is out here managing others as an artist manager. This is crazy.
Yeah,
This
I
is
appreciate the
insane.
love.
This is insane. Okay. Well, okay. So I think we also come to find out like your largest inspiration was like your father and like his lead within like Brazil and coming here and working with Sony X, Y, and Z. And so given that recent experience with like Sony and things like that, well, not recent, but like his past with Sony,
Yeah.
what made you like not want to like go that route and instead choose to be an independent music artist opposed to working with like a major record label?
Yeah. So with that, I had talks with my dad, of course, because when I started doing my own music, he kind of gave me the space to be my own thing because he at the time, mind you, he worked in like early 2000s, 90s, like when Linkin Park was coming out.
Yeah.
And at the time, rock was a thing and he had his own band. Nowadays, times are different, especially for the music that I'm in. I'm not a rock artist. I have elements of rock in my music due to him. But my main thing, because I also saw one of your questions was my inspiration. My dad is obviously huge, but I looked at other artists too for the music that I make today. My favorite artist is Frank Ocean. Like that's my guy. Like, I've been listening to him for the longest. So,
Yeah,
Frank Ocean, Daniel Caesar. I know he's not the best part right now, but from a production standpoint, Kanye, because he's been out here for
no,
years.
it's
So,
valid though.
you
Music,
can't
yeah.
deny that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, so I've been listening to those artists for my whole life. So, and then looking at them, looking at my dad, I started to talk to him about labels and all that stuff. His advice at the time when I started in 2020 was, I have a pass with labels, but I want you to experience things for yourself. I'm here if you have any questions, but I don't want you to just straight up deny the labels or, neglect them because of my past with Sony. So at first I tried it. At first I had some managers that I looked out to. Last year, at this time last year, I went to LA. I spent 2 weeks in LA, connected with a lot of people because LA is just a pool of different artists and all that stuff.
Mhm.
And then in May, I went to New York. I did some stuff there too. And I've been around. I went to Brazil itself because my dad knows a lot of people there still. So I talked to managers in Brazil. I talked to managers in Puerto Rico and Dominican Republic. And I gathered a lot of experience and I got a lot of information that made me want to stay independent. It was not directly due to Sony, how big experiences, but it all ties back. So kind of going towards like the challenges and the different things you look at, labels, and this obviously won't apply to every artist, but in my own experience, labels right now really do care about your social media presence because they don't necessarily look at an artist just due to their talent at the time we're in today. It's a mixture of how talented you are, and how much will my investment come back to me money wise. So let's say
Right.
that you have a company like, I'm just naming a name here, like Warner, right? And then you go to Warner and you're like, okay, I want to get signed here. Beyond this, the what they call the slave deals, whether they send to small artists of having like a big percentage be sent to them, they won't even offer you such deal if you don't have X amount of followers on TikTok and Instagram, regardless of how good your music is. That was the
Right.
first thing that I kind of didn't really like. I think in 2020 I was just starting off, so they were like, I want you to reach X amount of listeners on Spotify and all that before we sign you, though we think your music is already ready for the market. And that kind of frustrated me because I was like, okay, so if my music is good, it's kind of your guys' job to help me be out there. So like, why not just invest in my music for my talent? So and
Right.
then I reached such levels of that they wanted to, but then I didn't want it anymore because if you really think about it, I reached that on my own. So why is not stopping me from doing more and more and just kind of keeping my own recipe going and the
Right.
talent that I already have and just kind of do my own thing. So,
Exactly.
experiences like that and talking to managers, even before being introduced to labels, managers telling me their own experiences and things they plan to do with my art not really aligning with my vision kind of made me want to stay independent. I do have a team that, sticks with me. I'll talk about them later. But and when it comes to deals and all that stuff, I'd rather keep it everything to myself.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's like a part that's often like overlooked by many of the aspiring music artists is that like, there are a lot of like complexities like tied into like, working with like major record deals and like seeing what their return is going to be and like how they might be like how they can climb the ladder with working
Yeah.
with major record deals and things like that. So I I I appreciate your take on that. So my next question to you is who is oh actually no. What was the process like to becoming an independent music artist? And is
Okay.
it different and how is it different from being a regular music artist working at a record?
Yeah, so I can kind of tie back to kind of on the same timeline that I was in. When I first started doing the label thing, obviously I was independent as I was trying to be signed by a label. So I started experiencing things that independent artists would, and me almost signing made me also experience what that future would be if I had signed to a label. So when you sign to somebody, depending on the deal you're looking at, for example, I'll name like obviously I won't say names, but in LA I saw this one manager and he listened to my stuff and he was like, okay, and he said, I have X and Y label wanting you to sign with the numbers you got and all this, but you got to make X amount of music. You got to put 2 albums that sound exactly like this because that's what they're looking for right now. So when you go to a label, being a small artist, labels think not necessarily for everybody, but in my case, they thought they had the power to kind of dictate where I would take my stuff because I was such a small and just starting off artist that they thought I was malleable to the point of changing my whole style of my whole approach and my vision to fit what they needed for to make money. Because at the end of the day, music is an art form, but it's also a business, a huge business in the whole world. So
Mhm.
they want to make money off of it at the end of the day with the art. So if your vision and your, core is not aligned to what they need, and they're not going to waste money on it. And if they are going to waste money on it, you got to line up with what they want. So that's
Mhm.
the difference in being independent. When you're independent, it's just you, so you can do whatever you want really. So if
Mhm.
you see a potential in it, obviously you have to look at the financial side of things because you're independent. All the the money, all the stuff that you're investing is going to come from your own pockets.
Mhm.
But if you see vision in it, if you see a potential in it, you have all the freedom to do it, and no one's going to stop you. No one will hold you to a deal. So I feel
Yeah.
like that's the biggest difference that most people will already be knowing about independent and label. The
Mhm.
second one, I feel like you have the freedom to talk and connect to whoever you want to. Sometimes you will have certain restrictions, like you can talk to X artist or Y artist because they're connected to X label, Y label. It's
Right.
not something that is talked about as much that I wasn't really familiar with. But me going to these places and going to certain events, I will be told by a manager or label, if you're gonna sign up with us, I don't want you to be doing a feature with this guy. I don't want you to be putting a verse with this guy because it conflicts with what we want. It's stuff that I've really never heard about. And I was shocked when I heard. I was like, I thought as artists we're just supposed to do whatever, you know what I mean? But
Right.
you are really tied at the end of the day to a vision, almost a character to what they want. Like it's molded really.
Right.
And that really didn't, I don't know, I didn't really fit with what I wanted. I'm a very authentic person, and my dad really warned me about these things back then because that's kind of what he went through with Sony.
Mhm.
And he said that, yeah, like that's kind of exactly what I went through. I wanted you to experience it for yourself, but you see what I mean, why I left Sony. And then I understood, and I was like, okay, so main thing for me kind of narrowing it down is you kind of lose the essence of why you started making music and where you want to go with things if you are tied down to what they want financially wise.
Yeah. No, I and that's a very like valid point that you bring up too, because like many people we surrender ourselves to music because of like the because of how much we're able to like express ourselves with it, we're just able to use it as like a blank canvas for our art, whatever emotions, whatever it is. So to like have, you know, a major record company or whatever it is, like control your music, your flow, your image, you know, what you hoping to bring out, that kind of like deters from the original point of you even like creating music, and creating your own form of art. So yeah, that's huge.
Yeah.
Might I ask, what are like two challenges that you find with being an independent music artist?
Okay. I feel like the kind of ties back to what I talked about too. I feel like the first one, which is the most obvious one, is all the effort got to come from you. There's nobody that's gonna, let's say one day you wake up, you don't want to do it. You are wasting time, you're wasting money, and you're wasting potential. So the
Mhm.
hunger of wanting to do it when you're independent is gotta be 50 times greater. Because when you're signed to a deal, one of the quote unquote maybe good things about a deal is that you have a whole team working for you, right? So let's say for booking a show or getting a feature or going to a podcast, you'll probably have a manager, you'll probably have a team, a marketing team that will be looking out for you and say like, hey, I got you scheduled for this podcast next Tuesday, and that's it. When you're independent, you might even have a team that will help you with it, but at the end of the day, the effort got to come from you. The hunger and the fire got to come from you. And if you really like music and that's your passion, that shouldn't be a problem, but it is definitely a challenge and something
Mhm.
that you will find hard in the beginning, but then with time, you kind of, And the second thing I feel like is the influence, right? Putting yourself in certain rooms, because we all know music is a game of connection, meeting certain artists and meeting certain managers. Because having a manager obviously does not mean being tied to a label. So, you still want to find people of influence, even when you're independent, and
Mhm.
connect with these people and network with them. But to being placed in those rooms of influence requires effort and requires knowing certain people, and you will have to go that extra mile when you're independent instead of just being, oh, I'm signed to Sony. When you say a big name next to an artist, you open a lot of doors for you. Oh, I'm an artist from Sony. A bunch of people will be like, oh, okay, cool. Because it's almost like a cloud thing, right? You think that since you're connected to these people, you automatically have some sort of influence or some sort of power over other people, and you go into a lot of rooms and you meet a lot of people. When you're independent, you have to prove through talent that you are worthy of being there. So it is an extra challenge for sure on top of being signed.
Yeah. And so let's talk more about that part. So you mentioned like sometimes you have to prove yourself like as an artist and things like that. So what would you say has been like one of your fears as you step into these spaces with like, you know, other influencers and kind of dealing with the imposter syndrome, where you feel like you
Mhm.
sometimes aren't like good enough to present your music or your craft to others?
Yeah, obviously there is that, like you mentioned, imposter syndrome is a really good word for that because you feel like you don't belong there and all that stuff. But it really ties back to beyond music is confidence and love for what you do. You need to really, have the confidence in yourself that you are where you're supposed to be because you earned that. And if you're independent, you know that nobody else put you there, only you. So if you have the talent and the skill and the persistence to reach that point where you're in that room talking to these people and you're in that event or performing at this festival or in that stage, you did that for yourself. So if you're there already, then just do the best you can and be yourself because that's the best you can do. That's the only thing you can do. Be yourself. Don't ever portray a character because you will reach a higher level or a different level with a person that you're not. And whenever that mask falls, people are going to realize you were not that. And then the real imposter syndrome kicks in because then you're
Right.
really not where you're supposed to be. So you got to reach every space being your most ultimate core self ever. And that will reduce that fear that you just kind of asked me about not belonging or, having to prove yourself. If you're you from the jump, everyone's gonna know what you're in for and what you're there to present. And all you can do really is be you and give them the best performance you can.
Yeah. Could you share an experience that you've had like that where you've like kind of like had to overcome one of your greatest fears?
I feel like my first time performing, I'd say, because tying back to like that, I had a friend Kenny, right? Kenny was already like a bigger artist than me, so he met a guy through TikTok, super obviously huge influence at the time with music. He met a
Right.
guy through TikTok and he was like, "Hey, I want you to open for me in Tampa." It was my first concert outside of Orlando. And then I went to Tampa with him, and I was only gonna be a feature. So I have a song that I have with him. He's gonna bring me on stage. And then I went there, and they had an artist missing on that little concert. Like he couldn't show up. So they had
Mhm.
an open slot for an regular like 20-minute set. And on that 20-minute set, I could probably potentially perform in it. And also they had open mic afterwards and all that stuff. So I was like, okay, cool. So I go in as a feature, and nobody really knew us because we weren't in Orlando. Because when you're in Orlando, you have all these friends coming out for you, all that stuff, which is obviously
Right.
a very important thing, having supportive friends that supportive family. So
Mhm.
sometimes, we fill up the crowd with like 50 people we know and we feel we're in the top of the world. In Tampa, it was all new people. So that was a challenge. I was like, damn, I really got to know, hey, sing in this part. Yo, jump with me right here. Mosh pit
Right.
right here. Like, and you got to introduce yourself, So obviously it was, a challenging experience. But at the end of the day, with the stage presence and with the constant confidence thing I told you about, you kind of overcome that as you go. Sometimes even on the first song, you're still nervous, but on song 2 and 3, you start getting the feel of things and you start getting that confidence back and you make yourself at home. And then people sense that energy and they feed off that energy. So at the end of the day, we did an amazing show at the open mic. I performed, another friend of ours performed. We had a lot of people come up to us afterwards, buy our merch. We're like, yo, we really like the concert. What's your Instagram? I want to start following your music. And it all tied back to kind of getting over that fear and thinking, okay, I deserve to be here because I had enough work put in that I'll reach this stage. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, that's huge. That's huge. Honestly, performance anxiety is definitely a huge thing. Like,
Yeah,
especially like for aspiring music artists, many people like we want to become music artists, but it's just like the fact that like, you know, we're gonna be like performing in front of like thousands, just sometimes is like, you know, very like intimidating. But at the same
for
time,
sure.
um, I think it's also a very great thing to put into perspective when you get like, for example, 100 likes on a video that you uploaded. Like, you know, with you just being by yourself, those are like 100 supporters. And I once saw like basically advice online. I basically like spoke about like if those 100 people were in the same room as you, like, you know,
I
those are
saw that and
the
put
supporters,
into
you know?
perspective. Yeah,
Yeah. And so it just puts like those type of moments into perspective that like, you know, regardless of what it is, regardless of where you are, you still have like, you know, thousands of people out there that are still supporting you. And whether that's through online or in person, but it honestly starts with yourself, the core, for you to find that confidence. So that's huge. That's huge.
for sure.
Thanks
Thank
for
you.
sharing that. Okay, so my next question ties into your most proudest moment. Like, because honestly, like as you're unwrapping this thing, I don't know how long. Well, actually, you could tell me now, but how long you've been doing this. But what throughout that duration, what has been your most like proud moment? Like you're like, oh, like I ate that up. Like I
Yeah, there's a few, man. There's a few. Okay, I'll say like I'll kind of name a few, but like, I think like 'cause it really ties to what you value the most. I feel like, like I've always had a really supportive fan base, a really supportive group and all that stuff. But getting praises from them obviously means a lot to me because like I mentioned, when I first started, these people reached out to me and wanted me to, be there and do their music and all that. Princeton Kenny, my own dad, because our first never forced me to do anything. But when he saw potential, he was like, I want you to try this thing out. So making these people proud mean a lot to me. So, probably one would expect my proudest one was like, my first performance. So of course that was huge for me, meeting these managers and this managers, like for example, this one time I went to LA and this manager came up to us. I was thrifting some pants. This happens a lot in LA. I don't know if you've ever been. People just approach you. They're like, "Hey, you make music, you make beats." I'm like, "Oh." So then I was out here buying some pants, and then the guy was like, "Yo, no, bro." It was like I don't know, like 5'8" dude, like with some suit and surrounded by a bunch of kids that you could tell were TikTokers. He come up to me and Kenny and he's like, "Yo, y'all make music?" And we're like, "Yeah." And then he's like, "All right, so I got all this TikTokers from me that want to start getting into music, and then we need a producer, so somebody that makes beats." And I was like, "Oh yeah, I produce all that stuff." So we exchanged contacts. And later that night, he was like, "Yo, I want y'all to go to my place in the hills so we can like meet each other." At first, I really didn't want to go because it was my first time in LA. I come from a third world country, so I was like, I do not trust this man. I don't know what he's gonna put in our drinks, all that stuff. Because that fear kicks in. But my friends were like, "No, it's a one-time opportunity. We gotta go." So we get there, and like this obviously, meant a lot to me because this guy knows Drake's dad. Like he's like of influence. And then I go there and I play some beats, and he's not reacting to it. He's like kind of sitting down, like bopping his hair, but not really like giving me feedback. So at the end, when I stop, I'm like, "You like it?" He's like, "Oh, that was you." I was like, "Yeah." I was like, "Oh, I thought it was a Jay-Z beat because I think I heard Jay-Z do this like a few weeks ago." So that obviously means a lot because I'm like, "Oh, wow," he compared my stuff to that. But
yeah.
that's an example. Another one would be, for example, this is like last show. We stopped performing in Orlando, and then we were going to Taco Bell afterwards because we were like regular people. So we finished performing, went across the street to get some food, and we had like this fan that I had no idea who he was, bro. Came up to us and he just started screaming our name across the street. He was like, "Yo, I just saw you back there. It was such a cool performance." It was like a group of 5 people. They came up to us and was like, "Yo, do you know Vine?" People start calling you by your artist name instead of your own name. And like
Yeah.
those little things mean a lot, of course. But I feel like my proudest was this last project I put out, this parking lot that I put out in December.
Mhm.
Usually with my music, if you ever, get a chance to listen to it, I vary a lot of storytelling. It's characters that I play or stories that I tell, friend stories that I put in my own music. That EP was my own personal story, so it was my first time doing that because I know I always had a fear of talking about my own self in my music. That one was a really personal one. So I heard that whole thing, and like I didn't tell my parents I was putting it out. I don't know why. I think I was just very stressed with it, and
Mhm.
I didn't have a listening party. I was like, I just want to do this on my own. I did the whole thing in my bedroom. It was a really like private, like a simple experience. And when I put it out, I went back to, my circle of people and performed the next day. And I had like, I don't know, like 20 people come up to me and was like, yo, I just heard Parking Lot, it was the best thing ever. And like, I appreciate what you did, being so vulnerable. And I feel like that one hit the most because it was my first time being really vulnerable and being myself in my music, like and
Mhm.
telling my own stories and my own traumas. And then there's one time I'm downstairs and I just hear like my mom cleaning the house and my music is playing and it's my old
Yeah,
and my the stuff I just put out. And then
yeah,
she's like, "Yo, I heard it. I'm really proud of you and all that stuff." So it's a simpler one, but I felt that's my proudest because it's like
yeah,
the
yeah,
most personal. Tiny things mean a lot to small artists. You know what I'm saying? Like people
yeah.
yelling across the street, getting comparisons, and when your own family genuinely shows care and love for what you do, it means a lot. So that's probably like my most.
Yeah, man. Oh man, that no, like honestly, that's huge too. Like I'm not gonna lie, especially like when you have like, the people that you care about the most, like, share a vulnerable experience with you and like they connect to it. I feel like,
Yeah,
I mean, like
and
that,
they don't show judgment. They show genuine love and concern and connection. That means a lot. You
yeah.
know what I'm
Yeah, I think that's huge. Damn. Well, thank you again for sharing that part as well.
saying? Yeah.
My next question to you is, what are some ways that you hope to grow? And also, can you share how long you've been doing this? And then, yeah, what are some ways you're hoping to grow yourself as an artist, but also your team as well?
All right. So yeah, on my team real quick. So my team basically consists of me, Kenny, right? Me and Kenny are like been doing music together for the longest. We have an EP out that we put out in December called not December, it was last June. Yeah, last June called Bleach. It's like 7 songs long. So we've always been kind of a team, like not officially, but now we are. So
Mhm.
right now our team mainly consists of three different artists. Is me, Kenny, and Tento. Tento is 18. He's really, really young, but he's a prodigy, also a producer. So we have a team of different producers and different artists where let's say uninspired, I reach out to them and they already know me for years and they know what I sound good and what I'm comfortable in. And I'm like, yo, can y'all send me some stuff, some instrumentals, some ideas? And they, right away, 5 minutes later, I got a Dropbox file and it's right there. So having that team is really important. I have a person that takes care of my marketing, which is Prince. Prince, the guy that, referred me to Kenny, it's Kenny's brother. He
Mhm.
takes care of our merch. On our last show in Orlando, we finished performing and he had a little stand ready and he was ready to sell everything. The line open, he take care of our finances. We have a friend called Samar that now finds concerts for us. So even when you're independent, you do have people that now start taking care of other stuff for you once you start expanding your team. So she's closing deals with us, logging to other bands, talking to other people of influence, making that network happen, all that stuff. And I have one more that would be, well, at the time they're not really available, but I have this team of directors that take care of my music videos. So, every visual I have a person that's been doing photography and video making for like 30 plus years. She's a lady from Brazil. So there's a team that I have there as well. I have somebody that takes care
Oh,
of
that's
scriptures for the
nice.
music. So,
Mhm.
I meet with them because for this one project I'm making called Seasons, I've been meeting with them last year almost every week, and we're, taking care of scripts, of characters, casting, all that stuff to make
Mhm.
sure that the video is the best it can be. So I have a little team, and when it comes to expanding your team, I feel like at the point I am right now, I just really expanded because we just added some more in the picture like a week ago. So
Mhm.
before that, we were the ones searching for shows and all that stuff. And like that's the one of the challenges I told you about. Putting yourself in those rooms is really challenging when it all comes from you. Now we
Yeah,
have her to take care of that. So,
yeah,
like that's like a way of expanding it. And I feel like I just kind of mentioned, like indirectly, expand to things beyond music. I feel like you become more of a complete artist when you, like the name says, you're an artist, not just a music person, you're not just a
right,
musician. So when you look at your clothing line or a merch or adding visuals to your music, visuals are a very important thing. We're in a very visual world. Making little trends or making a universe in your albums whenever you get to that, LPs and EPs. So
mhm,
expanding to different areas beyond music to make the artist almost a whole universe that people can go into, not just something they can listen to, is really important and something that I'm planning to do. As I mentioned here, this EP that I'm working on is going to be dropping around June 1st. I have an album that I've been working on from the past 2 years that I plan to drop next year. I have a lot of music videos lined up for the previous EP that I dropped in December. So there's a lot of efforts that you always got to be making as someone that's independent to add
mhm.
more to your audience, give them more content, no matter what it is.
Right, right. And so, as it relates to that, like as it relates to what you're pushing out there, do you ever fear that like do you ever fear is time ever like like a fear to you, like like how does it work for like when it comes to like perfecting your work and then also making sure that it's still true to you, because I oftentimes hear of like many situations where people are like, oh, I miss the old Kanye or X, Y, and Z, or like and there's sometimes sometimes we might push out art too quickly, and then it's not as perfect as we might want it to be. So how do you navigate through those?
Yeah, it's definitely ups and downs, of course, because when we're talking interviews and stuff, we sometimes forget that I also make mistakes. So it is something that I struggle with. Sometimes I take too long to put out music. Being a Frank Ocean fan does that. Frank Ocean fan does that to you. I take months to put out my own stuff sometimes, and my fans are like, "Yo, where are you?" I'm like, "Hey." So I feel like the main thing with that is that's where the team kicks in. People around you to motivate you and kind of take that fear out. We will have bad days as an artist when you're just looking at you individually. Those fears of not have to put something out. People miss the old stuff. Like I said, kind of being that having that inspiration on these artists. I usually make slower stuff, right? And I usually make something more introspective and all that. But I do have cuts that are more popular, that are more lively and more colorful, and I use some happier chords or like a more of a lively, faster beat. But that's not my favorite type of music to make. I like making almost like diary entries and like these complex, introspective songs. But sometimes I would say like on insecurity of mine, when you perform these things live to a opening for an artist or maybe a hip hop artist or going after Kenny himself, Kenny makes way more hip hop live-ear music than me. So when you go in these settings and with these people, with the crowd that wants to mosh pit, and you make this slow type of music, that insecurity kicks in. Oh, I should be making more of a hype stuff. I should be changing my style so it fits this specific crowd. But that's
Mhm.
where the mistake lies. You're focusing your whole artistry in that one show and that one crowd that wanted a specific type of music, and you're ignoring this other world of people that loves your slow stuff. So it's
Mhm.
not about like wanting to please the one specific crowd of people that like your old stuff. It's about looking at the other doors that might open if you do stick to your craft and if you are flexible with other type of styles and other art forms. So that
Right.
thing about like missing the old Frank Ocean, missing the old Kanye, the old Childish Gambino is mainly about appreciating what they have done, and if they go back there, cool. But if not, also respecting that the artist is trying something different and trying to appeal to new people. So you
Yeah.
gotta tell yourself that sometimes as an artist, you know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
So yeah, that's mainly like the main thing, like having a team to reassure you of those things and to make sure that you're always looking to strive for other things and new things. Things have endings, things end. So maybe I'm
Right.
in a role of making really hype music, and I want to make something like indie, or I was inspired by this one experience I had during the summer, and I want to write about my summer in a more of a low key, like laid back type of style. Go there. If you're inspired, if you have that hunger to go there, do it, and no one really can stop you.
Right. 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 Ah, okay, okay, you ate that up, you ate that up. Yeah, yeah, I think that's huge. Especially that remark on like being able to try something new, like, and just being okay with that, like you yourself being okay with like trying something new with without the thought of what your fans might think of it, because at the end of the day, like, you're the producer, right? So you're the person
Hmm.
music, you are the person who's feeling the music. So whether you're trying something new or not, you're still going to be able to connect with somebody in some shape or form, because it's your most authentic self that you're connecting your piece to.
Yeah, and
So
the fans you want to have around are the ones that like your most authentic self. So if they see that
yeah,
change, they will go with it because they really
yeah,
care about your music.
yeah. So thank you for sharing that as well. So I just have two more questions for you. The second to last question is, starting within the industry, what is a mistake that you made, and what would you do to reverse it? Or would you reverse it?
First mistake that I made. That if we're looking at first mistake, literally what I just said, really wanting to change your style because of a certain performance or a certain feedback that I got. Obviously, like my friend group, when you're a small artist, this will be people a lot. We're gonna relate to this a lot. You go in your car, right, and like, yo, it's not finished yet. You always say that because because it is finished, but you don't want it to know it's finished because maybe there's like some feedback. I still
Yeah.
it's a rough mix. Saying like just follow me, give me some feedback, and you play it in the car, and either your friends are gonna go super crazy about it, or they're gonna be like, yo, I feel like it's too slow, all that stuff. Usually when you play with your friends, people imagine like the hard ass 808s and like a cool little bars for them to jump out the car, all that stuff. But when you make more introspective music, that's not the reaction you're gonna get. Even if it's good music, you're gonna have a more calm and collected reaction. So
Mhm.
my friends, like my intimate closer friends, they like faster, more hip hop. They like the little babies and the futures and the Drakes and all that stuff. And that's not the music that I make, and I do respect that. But at first, when I first started off, when they heard, oh, Eric's making music, that's what they connected to. So when I play
Mm.
that to them, I would get feedbacks like, I think that's a little too slow. I like what you're doing, but I feel like if all your musics are sad, I can't really get hyped to it. When I'm going to school, when I'm getting ready for a basketball game, I can't really listen to your stuff because it doesn't get me hyped. And then you hear these things when you're just starting off, you're like, oh, that means I got to change it. But that connects to what I just told you, kind of lose your identity, you lose your artistry if you're
Mhm.
letting other opinions dictate where you're going to take your music. You want to be your
Right.
most authentic self. So I tried that. I did some other stuff, and some of these did work. Like I mentioned, one of my biggest hits are like more livelier, more like light colored music and all that stuff. So I was like, okay, cool. I did. I put that out. I got 10K, 20K on that on Spotify. People love to share it everywhere. But am I happy with what I put out? I was, but I knew that what I really loved wasn't that, was something else. So then I go and put out these different EPs of what I really like, and my friends nowadays respect it. And but what matters is for people that are starting out, this feedback is important for you to listen to it and for you to like take it in, maybe apply it to your own craft, but not to completely change what you wanted to do. So if I hear something like this nowadays, I'll take it in. I'll explain to them, that's not really the direction I was going for. But like, look at it from this perspective, right? Let's say that you are maybe, I don't know, like you're in an airplane, you're going to a different state, or you're like on a camping trip and you're like on your own in the forest and you're just kind of walking around and doing some reflection, some diary, some journaling, and you're listening to my stuff. Then it makes sense. Then it fits because my
Right,
music won't fit every setting, right? So
right.
if my music is made to fit a certain setting and you want it to put in a completely different area, of course it's not going to match. But that's not what because the music is bad, but it's because it's not in the proper setting that's supposed to be listened to. So
Right.
it's kind of changing your perspective on these feedbacks and helping people change their own perspectives on your feedback and not letting that change who you are as an artist. It's something that I learned pretty quickly throughout the years.
Yeah. Wow, 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 wow. Okay, okay, okay. I like that. I like that. And I'm also curious. Well, this is a separate question, so I guess I'll ask this when this ends, maybe.
All right.
But but so it's actually kind of slightly tied into the last question, actually. But what would be a piece of advice that you would have for an aspiring music artist, especially as many aspiring music artists, we're also full-time students, we're full-time workers and things like that, trying to balance out that lifestyle. What would be a piece of advice that you would share with just any aspiring music artist?
I'll tell y'all my full time students and workers. I'll tell y'all a story that happened just this Thursday. So this was like my first like more like towards the professional like shows that I did. Before it was small gatherings and all that stuff for other artists or other artists were running their own shows. This one had like an actual crew. People had like staff in the back of their shirts and were calling me, Alvane, are you good? I still have the artist band. Like people put artists right here to show you're performing. Free
Yeah.
food, got backstage and all that stuff. So I was like, okay,
Ooh.
cool. And this was a Thursday, mind you. So like I mentioned, I'm a neuroscience student. I'm pre-med. So then on this Friday of the next morning at 7 a.m., I had a lab, the biological sciences building at UCF. And I had to show up and I had to do that lab. It was like a 3 hour long lab. It was super important for my grade, right? So obviously I show up for music because I'm an artist, that's my passion. But then everyone's backstage, right? And everybody had their laptops out with their focus, right? Playing unreleased music. Because we do that a lot in shows. Because we want to get feedback from other artists. So when it comes to my turn, they look at myself like, what you doing? Organic chemistry. It's gonna happen. Like it's really common.
It's
Like you're
gonna
gonna
happen.
be in settings where you really don't want to be doing that homework, but you really got to do it because obviously I have a self control with my academics. I'm really passionate about my academics as well.
Mhm.
So at some point you're gonna have to know that balance. And the main thing that I kind of say and like is a saying in Portuguese when I'm gonna try like translate it. You got to put the foot on the pedal when it's the foot on the pedal is due. So let's say that right now your music is really popping off. If your grades can hold a little bit, like 14 weeks without, not 14 weeks, 14 days without looking at it, give it a little effort to the music because that's popping right now. But let's say you got finals coming up and you're like in a good solid state, like you got some solid streams going on, you got a show lined up for 2 weeks. You don't have to be worrying about music right now. So then you put that effort into your finals. It's about
Mhm.
balancing things and making sure that you're straight from both ends because you don't want academics to fail completely because if you are someone that wants to get an education, by all means get that education, but also
Right,
pursue your dreams. If you're somebody that has to support your family financially, by all means go to work. Do not skip work, do that because right now it is a short term thing you have to accomplish. At the end of the day, you blow up in music and you're able to support your peers financially with that. That's amazing. That's the end of the goal. That's what we all want. But right now, today, you have to show up to work. So it's having that discipline is really important. It kind of ties into the advice for small artists. But now more related to music, it's kind of the point of this whole interview. Just be you. You know what I'm saying? Because like being independent gives you the freedom to be yourself and to have your own identity. But even when you are independently, that imposter syndrome and that insecurity will creep in, and you're gonna want to try to switch things up to kind of appeal to a different type of audience, or you got a
mhm.
certain people that you didn't like and you want to kind of change things up, or you might be insecure to perform to a certain crowd. Just be you, and the people that care for you will understand that and will stick to your most authentic self. If you want to make K-pop music, if you want to make rock music, death metal music, if it's not trending right now, none of that matters. Because if you make music that is trending, people are gonna tell that you're making an effort to fit in, and that is
Yeah,
gonna be really obvious, and people are not gonna mess with that. You gotta
right.
make what you sound the most comfortable on, the most happy on. If today you want to make something that's like a super trap, like early 2000s beat, and the next day want to do like some Cochise or Cardi type of like completely different universes, full out autotune, do it because that's what you want to do and that's what you're gonna sound the most comfortable in. And if you
Right.
don't want to put it out right now, cool, put in your drafts, put it out 3 months later, whatever. But what matters is you did that and you have it with you and you have a version of that moment of your authentic self that people are gonna love at some point.
Right.
So, always stick to your guns, stick to your passion. And if you are students and whatnot, have the discipline and have the vision of doing what you got to do right now to be in the best position to succeed later on. Think ahead, think plan all the time.
Yeah. Yeah, man, you killed that. You killed that. I like that. I like that. I feel like that. I feel like that's huge, especially the part on like just prioritizing your needs and like figuring out like what is the thing that you need to focus on right now for you to get through, your day or your week
Yeah,
or even just that month. And I feel like that's often the part that's kind of overlooked much of the time because it's like, okay, well, in the future, like I want this, then the third, but we're not necessarily like focusing on our present or like what's going on in the present that's going well. And
mm,
sometimes we just get so overwhelmed that like we just remain stagnant. And I feel like that's the harm.
yeah,
That's the greatest harm that you can do to yourself is just remaining complacent because at that point you're not doing anything at all. So I feel like the part that you really that really resonated was just like prioritizing and kind of like sitting in on those moments where like you are achieving something and then focusing, some of your attention to the parts that actually do need attention.
yeah.
So um,
Short-term goals, that's really important. Like we hear this
right,
in every class we take that's like psychological or motivation or whatnot. Short-term goals piled up together create a long-term goal. So if your
right,
long-term goal is to blow up in music, I want to be as big as the weekend, but right now you have two jobs and you're a full-time student, you can't just jump that and be like, I'm gonna drop everything because that's what I love. This
right,
is necessary right now for you to be stable enough to invest money in your music and be able to have all the visibility. Everything connects, everything is a plan. So setting those short-term things, and like you mentioned, that I even my bad, I forgot to mention that. Appreciate what you have right now. Every little victory is something, is tiny steps towards a bigger goal. So
yeah,
everything you gotta appreciate and not be complacent of, and understand is one day at a time, and you
yeah.
will reach that eventually. We will get there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely, definitely. I appreciate you so much,
Of course,
Eric.
pleasure to be here.
It was an absolute pleasure to have you on this call, sharing, your experience on the music industry. You're out there killing it. 20 years old. This man is
Thank you,
just
thank you.
wise. Yeah, the places that you'll go, man, this is insane. But is there any last words that you would like to share with the audience before we close out this interview?
I feel like I kind of gave like kind of my peace of mind towards everything. I hope these things have meaning to you. Stream Alvane, right? My own music
Yeah,
everywhere.
yeah.
And I was like, yeah, for sure. If you guys are into, like I mentioned here, I switch styles too. So if you don't like a certain type of style, scroll a little bit on my discography. You will find something that you will like. I have a very flexible type of different genres. However I'm feeling in the morning is what you're hearing in my music. And stream Detromati as well. That's like my guy. That's my brother, the Tensel, all of us. So yeah, that's it. Thank you so much for having me. And yeah,
Yeah.
always strive for what you want to do. Be authentic to your own self, and that's it.
Oh yeah. Wait, and spell out your Instagram or your music tag so they can find you.
Yeah. So my artist name and my Instagram are the same. My Instagram is like an extra thing. So it's Alvane. It's spelled out Alvani. My Instagram has a dot and an underline afterwards. My Spotify is just Alvani. And then Detromati kind of spells out to yourself, but it's DTRO and space MIGHTY.
Okay, okay, y'all heard it here first. Thank you guys very much. And yes, you guys will see more information in the description box. Thank you guys. I'm gonna
Thank
close, I'm gonna
you.
stop recording.
All right.
All right.